Patricia Henderson stared at the unopened envelope on her kitchen table, her hands trembling. The return address belonged to the hospital where she and her twin brother Dominic had been born 30 years ago. She'd spent her entire life wondering about her birth parents, imagining countless scenarios about why they had given her and Dominic up for adoption. But she never imagined it had anything to do with the color of their skin. "Are you going to open it or just keep staring at it?" Dominic asked, sliding into the chair across from her. His voice was gentle, but Patricia could sense the tension underneath. This envelope contained information that could change everything they thought they knew about themselves. "What if we don't like what we find?" Patricia whispered. Dominic reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Then we deal with it together like we always have." Patricia nodded and took a deep breath. The twins had been raised by loving adoptive parents, the Hendersons, a black couple who had always been honest about their adoption. What the Hendersons hadn't known, or at least hadn't shared, was why their birth parents had given them up. With one quick motion, Patricia tore open the envelope and pulled out several documents, birth certificates, medical records, and a sealed letter that made her heart race. She pushed the letter toward Dominic. "You read it." Dominic picked up the letter, breaking the seal carefully. As he unfolded the paper, a small photograph fell out. It showed a young white couple holding two newborn babies. Babies with distinctly darker skin than their parents. "Oh my God," Patricia whispered, picking up the photo. "Is that them?" Dominic nodded, his eyes scanning the letter. As he read, his expression hardened. "Patricia, they gave us up because we were born black." "What? How is that possible?" Patricia snatched the letter from his hands. "To whom it may concern. My name is Dorothy Freeland. 30 years ago, my husband Justin and I gave birth to twins at Mercy Hospital. The babies, a boy and a girl, were born with dark skin despite both of us being white. Justin immediately accused me of infidelity, which I denied. DNA tests confirmed that we were indeed the biological parents, but Justin couldn't accept it. He said it was a medical anomaly or a mix-up at the hospital, but he couldn't bear the shame of what people would think. He forced me to give the babies up for adoption. I've regretted that decision every day since." The medical explanation was simple. "We both carried recessive African genes that expressed themselves in our children. But Justin's pride mattered more than our babies. I'm writing this letter because Justin is dying. He refuses to acknowledge what he did, but I can't go to my grave with this secret. If my children ever come looking, please give them this letter and tell them I'm sorry. Tell them I never stopped thinking about them. Dorothy Freeland." Patricia looked up at Dominic, tears streaming down her face. "This can't be real." "The letter is dated 5 years ago," Dominic said quietly. "Our birth mother could still be alive." Patricia shook her head in disbelief. "Our birth parents were white, and they gave us up because we weren't." "Who does that?" "People whose concern for appearances outweighed their love for their children," Dominic replied, his voice tight with anger. Patricia stared at the photo again. "Do you think we should try to find them?" Dominic was silent for a long moment. "I don't know. What would we even say? I have no idea." Patricia placed the letter back on the table. "But don't you want to know why? I mean, really, not just what's in this letter. What if they reject us again?" Dominic asked, voicing the fear that had haunted them both their entire lives. Patricia's phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was her adoptive mother, Elizabeth Henderson. Patricia showed Dominic the screen. "Don't tell her yet," Dominic said quickly. "Not until we decide what we're going to do." Patricia nodded and answered the call. "Hey, Mom, Patricia, honey, I need you and Dominic to come over right away. Elizabeth's voice was strained. It's Dad. He's had a heart attack. Patricia's world tilted sideways. Is he okay? They're doing tests at the hospital. But... Elizabeth's voice broke. The house, Patricia. We're going to lose the house. We're behind on the mortgage. And with these medical bills. We'll be right there, Patricia promised, ending the call and looking at Dominic with panic in her eyes. Dad's had a heart attack, and they're about to lose the house. Dominic stood up immediately. We'll figure it out. The Hendersons are our real parents. They're the ones who chose us, who loved us. This other stuff can wait. As they gathered their things to leave, Patricia slipped the letter and photo back into the envelope. But as she did, something else caught her eye. An address scribbled on the back of the photo. An address for Dorothy and Justin Freeland. Dominic, she said slowly. I think I know where they live. Dominic paused at the door. That doesn't matter right now. Mom and Dad need us. But what if it could help? Patricia held up the envelope. These people owe us 30 years of child support, don't they? What if we could get them to help save Mom and Dad's house? Dominic stared at his sister, considering the implications of what she was suggesting. You want to track down the people who abandoned us because of our skin color and ask them for money? I want to help the parents who actually loved us, Patricia replied firmly. And if that means confronting the ones who didn't, then that's what I'll do. The twins looked at each other, a lifetime of unspoken understanding passing between them. They had always been there for each other through foster care, through adoption, through every struggle and triumph. This would be no different. Let's go see Mom first, Dominic said finally. Then we'll decide what to do about the Freelands. As they walked out to the car, Patricia couldn't help but wonder. What would it be like to stand face to face with the people who had given them away? And more importantly, would confronting their birth parents heal old wounds or create new ones? What neither of them realized was that the Freelands had been searching for them, too, for reasons neither Patricia nor Dominic could possibly imagine. The antiseptic smell of the hospital corridor made Patricia's stomach clench as she and Dominic hurried toward the cardiac unit. Memories of their adoptive father, Anthony's previous health scares flooded back. His first minor heart attack when they were in high school, the bypass surgery 3 years ago, but this time felt different. Their mother's voice had held a note of desperation Patricia had never heard before. There they are, Dominic said, spotting Elizabeth Henderson sitting alone in the waiting area, her normally immaculate appearance disheveled, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Mom, Patricia called, rushing to embrace her. Elizabeth looked up, relief washing over her tired face. At 68, she suddenly seemed much older than her years. Thank God you're both here. How's Dad? Dominic asked, taking the seat beside her. Stable for now, Elizabeth's voice trembled. The doctor says he needs surgery, but our insurance. She trailed off, shaking her head. I shouldn't have called you two in a panic. You have your own lives, your own problems. Stop that, Patricia said firmly. We're family. Your problems are our problems. Elizabeth squeezed Patricia's hand gratefully. Anthony would be furious if he knew I told you about the mortgage. He's been trying to handle it himself, taking on extra security guard shifts at his age. She sighed deeply. 30 years in that house. All those memories we made together raising you two. Dominic and Patricia exchanged a meaningful glance. The envelope that had upended their world just hours ago now seemed even more significant. Their birth parents had thrown them away over skin color, while the Hendersons had sacrificed everything to give them a loving home. How much do you owe on the house? Dominic asked quietly. Elizabeth hesitated. The bank sent a final notice. We're behind $18,000, and they're threatening foreclosure next month with these new medical bills. She gestured helplessly at the hospital surroundings. Patricia did a quick mental calculation. Between her job as a physical therapist and Dominic's work as a high school teacher, they barely had enough for their own expenses. Their modest savings wouldn't come close to covering that amount. We'll figure something out, Dominic promised, though he had no idea how. A doctor in blue scrubs approached them. Mrs. Henderson, your husband is awake and asking for you. Elizabeth stood immediately. Can my children come, too? The doctor nodded, just for a few minutes. He needs rest. They followed the doctor to a small room where Anthony Henderson lay connected to various monitors. At 70, his once powerful frame seemed diminished against the white hospital sheets, but his eyes lit up when he saw his family. There's my crew, he said, his voice weaker than normal, but still carrying that familiar warmth. Patricia felt tears threatening as she bent to kiss his cheek. How are you feeling, Dad? Like I've been kicked by a mule, Anthony joked weakly. But I'll be fine. Don't you worry about your old man. Dominic took his father's hand. Mom told us about the house. Anthony shot Elizabeth a reproachful look. Shouldn't have bothered you kids with that. We're not kids anymore, Dad, Patricia said. And we want to help. Absolutely not, Anthony said with surprising force. You two have worked too hard getting your education, building your own lives. I won't have you draining your savings for our mistakes. What mistakes? Dominic asked. You gave us everything. Anthony's eyes grew misty. We made promises when we adopted you. Promises to give you the best life possible. He looked away. I should have managed our finances better, planned for retirement better. Anthony, stop, Elizabeth interjected. The remortgage was my idea, too, to help pay for the kids' college. Patricia and Dominic exchanged another glance. Their parents had remortgaged their fully paid house to help fund their education. The weight of that sacrifice pressed heavily on both of them. The doctor returned. I'm sorry, but Mr. Henderson needs to rest now. They said their goodbyes, promising to return in the morning. As they walked back to the parking lot, Patricia pulled out the envelope containing their birth records. I've been thinking, she said hesitantly. The address on the photo isn't far from here. Maybe an hour's drive. Dominic stopped walking. You want to go now? Tonight? Why not? Patricia looked down at the envelope. Dad needs that surgery soon. The bank won't wait. And these people, our biological parents, they owe us something, don't they? Dominic ran a hand over his face. Patricia, we can't just show up on their doorstep demanding money. Why not? Patricia's voice rose slightly. They abandoned us because we weren't white enough for them. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad gave up everything to raise us. I'd say the Freelands owe a debt, wouldn't you? And what if they slam the door in our faces? Dominic countered. What if they call the police on us? We don't know these people. Patricia clutched the envelope tighter. The letter said Justin Freeland was dying. That was 5 years ago. What if he's already dead? What if Dorothy is all alone, full of regrets? What if she's been looking for us? Dominic sighed heavily. Or what if she shares her husband's prejudices? What if she only wrote that letter to clear her conscience? We won't know unless we try, Patricia insisted. We have to do something, Dominic, for Mom and Dad.
After a long moment, Dominic nodded. Fine, but we go tomorrow in daylight. And we have a plan. Not just barging in, demanding reparations.
Patricia agreed, and they parted ways in the parking lot, promising to meet the next morning.
At home, Patricia couldn't sleep.
She kept rereading the letter, studying the photograph of the young white couple holding their newborn twins. Justin Freeland's face was stiff, uncomfortable, while Dorothy looked like she'd been crying.
Had she known even then that she was about to lose her children?
Patricia fired up her laptop and searched for Dorothy Freeland near the address they had. Several results appeared, but one caught her eye. An obituary from just 3 months ago for a Dorothy Freeland, survived by her husband Justin.
That can't be right, Patricia muttered. The letter had said Justin was dying 5 years ago.
She dug deeper, finding a local news article about a Justin Freeland, a retired bank executive who had made a miraculous recovery from late-stage cancer 5 years earlier.
The article included a photo.
It was unmistakably the same man from the birth photo, just older.
Patricia immediately called Dominic.
"He's alive," she said when he answered. "Justin Freeland recovered from his cancer, but Dorothy died 3 months ago."
"Are you sure it's them?" Dominic asked groggily. "Positive." "And there's more," Patricia hesitated.
"According to the article, Justin Freeland is worth millions.
He owned 6 banks before retiring." The line went silent for a moment.
"So, our biological father, who rejected us for being born black, is a millionaire banker who somehow beat terminal cancer," Dominic finally said. "While our real dad, who sacrificed everything for us, might lose his home while fighting for his life."
The universe has a sick sense of humor. African Legacy Tales agrees bitterly. "I'll pick you up at 9 tomorrow," Dominic said.
"I think we need to pay Mr. Freeland a visit after all." After hanging up, Patricia stared at the photograph again. The face of the man who had rejected her at birth, the man who might now hold the key to saving her real father's home. What she didn't know was that her online searches had triggered a notification. Miles away in an expensive home overlooking the lake, Justin Freeland was looking at his computer screen, reading the alert that someone had been searching for information about him and his late wife.
Someone from an IP address registered to Patricia Henderson.
For the first time in 30 years, Justin Freeland felt genuine fear. The secret he thought had died with Dorothy was about to come knocking on his door.
Justin Freeland's estate was everything Patricia had imagined and more.
A sprawling lakeside mansion with manicured grounds and a circular driveway where a black Mercedes gleamed in the morning sun. It stood in stark contrast to the modest 3-bedroom home where the Hendersons had raised them.
"This is obscene," Dominic muttered as they pulled up to the imposing front gates.
"The man who threw us away lives like this." Patricia squeezed her brother's arm.
"Remember why we're here. This isn't about revenge.
It's about helping Mom and Dad."
Dominic nodded, though his jaw remained tight.
They had spent the morning at the hospital with Anthony, whose condition was stable, but still serious. The doctors wanted to schedule surgery as soon as possible, but insurance issues were causing delays.
Delays their father couldn't afford.
Patricia pressed the intercom button at the gate. "Freeland Residence," a woman's voice answered. "My name is Patricia Henderson," she said, her heart pounding.
"I'm here to see Justin Freeland. It's regarding a family matter."
There was a pause.
"Mr. Freeland isn't expecting any visitors today."
"Tell him," Patricia hesitated, then took the plunge. "Tell him Dorothy's children are here."
Another pause. Longer this time.
Then, without another word, the gates began to open. "That worked," Dominic said, surprised. They drove up the long driveway, parking behind a gardener's truck.
The front door opened before they reached it, revealing a middle-aged woman in a housekeeper's uniform.
"Mr. Freeland will see you in the study," she said, her expression revealing nothing as she led them through a marble-floored foyer into a wood-paneled room lined with books. The man standing by the window turned slowly as they entered. Justin Freeland was in his 70s now, his hair completely white, but he carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to power. He studied them for a long moment, his face unreadable. "So," he finally said, his voice steady, "Dorothy's letter found you." "5 years too late," Patricia replied, unable to keep the bitterness from her voice. Justin gestured to a seating area. "Please sit down. "I've been expecting this day for a long time." The twins remained standing.
"Have you?" Dominic asked coldly. "Because from what we understand, you never wanted to see us again. You gave us away because we were born black." Justin's face tightened. "Is that what Dorothy told you?"
"She said you accused her of infidelity," Patricia said.
"That you couldn't bear the shame of what people would think.
That your pride mattered more than your children." Justin closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, Patricia was surprised to see what looked like genuine pain. Dorothy's version of events was incomplete. "Then enlighten us," Dominic challenged.
Justin moved to a desk and opened a drawer, pulling out a folder. "I've prepared this for when you eventually came. It contains all the documentation you might want. Birth records, medical reports, financial statements, and my own account of what happened 30 years ago."
He held out the folder, but neither twin moved to take it.
"We didn't come for paperwork," Patricia said.
"We came because our father, our real father, is in the hospital with heart problems. Our parents are about to lose their home because of medical bills and a mortgage they took out to put us through college." She took a step forward.
"You owe us, Mr. Freeland. 30 years of child support at the very least." Justin's expression changed. "So this is about money." "It's about justice," Dominic countered. "It's about making things right."
Justin studied them both carefully.
"And how much would justice cost exactly?"
$18,000 for the mortgage, Patricia said. "Plus whatever Dad's medical bills come to, call it $30,000 total."
Justin actually laughed.
A short, harsh sound.
$30,000. That's what you think you're worth?
30 years of life reduced to a number smaller than what I paid for my car. Dominic tensed beside her, and Patricia placed a restraining hand on his arm.
"That's what we need," she clarified. "It's not about what we're worth." Justin set the folder down and returned to the window, looking out at the lake. "I was going to offer you much more than that."
The twins exchanged a look of surprise. "I've been searching for you both for 3 years," Justin continued. "After Dorothy died, I hired private investigators. They came close several times, but always lost the trail.
Too many closed adoption records, too many dead ends."
He turned back to face them. "I have terminal cancer for real this time. No miraculous recovery, 6 months at most, and I have no other children." Patricia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. This wasn't the confrontation she had expected. "I don't understand," she said slowly. "If you rejected us at birth, why look for us now?"
"Because Dorothy's letter didn't tell the whole truth," Justin replied simply. "Yes, I was shocked when you were born.
Yes, I initially accused Dorothy of infidelity, but once the DNA tests confirmed you were ours, I wanted to keep you."
"Then why didn't you?" Dominic demanded. Justin's face darkened.
"Because my father threatened to disown me and remove me from the family business if I kept those children. He controlled everything, our finances, our future."
"Dorothy and I argued bitterly."
She wanted to defy him, leave everything behind. I convinced her we couldn't provide for you properly if we did. He walked to a side table and picked up a framed photograph. We planned to give you up temporarily, just until I established financial independence from my father. But when we went back to reclaim you 6 months later, we were told you'd already been placed with a permanent family. The adoption was closed. We couldn't find you. He held out the photograph. Patricia took it reluctantly. It showed a much younger Dorothy holding 2 small stuffed bears, tears streaming down her face. She bought those the day we were told we couldn't get you back, Justin said quietly. Kept them in what would have been your nursery for 30 years. She never forgave me for my choice, and she was right not to. Patricia felt dizzy with conflicting emotions. This wasn't the villainous birth father she'd prepared to confront. Yet, she couldn't ignore the simple fact. Regardless of his reasons, this man had given them away. So now what? Dominic asked. You find out you're dying again and suddenly you want to make amends. Buy yourself forgiveness. I can't buy forgiveness, Justin said. But I can make sure you're taken care of. My estate is worth just over $40 million. I've already changed my will to leave everything to you both in equal shares. The number hung in the air between them. $40 million. Enough to pay off the Hendersons' mortgage 1,000 times over, enough to ensure their adoptive parents would never worry about money again. Why should we believe you? Patricia asked. You don't have to, Justin replied. My lawyer is drawing up papers for an immediate trust fund of $1 million for each of you. No strings attached. Whether you want a relationship with me in my final months or never want to see me again, the money is yours. He picked up the folder again and extended it. All the details are in here, including my lawyer's contact information. This time, Patricia took it. The Hendersons are our parents, she said firmly. This doesn't change that. I wouldn't expect it to, Justin said. From what little my investigators found, they seem like exceptional people. I'd like to meet them someday to thank them for raising my children when I failed to. Dominic shook his head. This is too much to process. We need time. I understand. Justin moved back to his desk, but allow me one gesture today. He wrote out a check, signed it, and held it out to Patricia. $30,000 for your parents' mortgage and medical bills. Consider it the first installment of a debt I can never fully repay. Patricia stared at the check, then at the man who had given her life, but not raised her. The man who claimed to have spent years searching for the children he'd once given away. Before she could respond, Justin's housekeeper appeared at the door. Mr. Freeland, your doctor is on the phone. He says it's urgent. Justin nodded. Please excuse me. Take the check. Take the folder. Think about what I've said. My contact information is inside when you're ready to talk again. As he left the room, Patricia and Dominic stood in stunned silence. The check in Patricia's hand feeling both like salvation and a betrayal. What do we do with this? She whispered. Dominic looked around at the opulent study. Evidence of the privileged life they might have had if things had been different. I don't know, but we need to talk to Mom before we make any decisions. What neither of them realized was that Justin's cancer diagnosis had made the local business news the previous day, and their adoptive father, Anthony Henderson, had already seen it, along with the announcement that Justin Freeland was searching for his long-lost children to inherit his fortune. The hospital corridor seemed even more oppressive as Patricia and Dominic made their way back to Anthony's room, the folder and check from Justin Freeland burning a hole in Patricia's purse. They had agreed to say nothing about their visit until they could speak privately with their mother, but both felt the weight of their secret pressing down on them. Outside the cardiac unit, they found Elizabeth sitting with a doctor reviewing documents. She looked up as they approached, her expression unreadable.
"How's Dad?"
Patricia asked, trying to sound normal.
"Stable?"
Elizabeth replied. The doctor was just explaining the procedure they want to do tomorrow. She squeezed the doctor's arm gratefully.
"Thank you, Dr. Chen. I'll discuss everything with Anthony." As the doctor left, Elizabeth turned to her children. "Where have you two been all morning?"
Patricia hesitated.
"We had some errands to run." "Is Dad awake? Can we see him?"
Elizabeth nodded, but as they turned toward Anthony's room, she stopped them. "Before you go in there, you should know something.
Your father is upset. He saw something on the news that bothered him." Dominic and Patricia exchanged alarmed glances. "What was it?" Dominic asked cautiously.
"Something about a banker named Justin Freeland," Elizabeth said, watching their reactions carefully. "Apparently, he's dying and looking for his long-lost children to inherit his fortune." Patricia felt her heart drop.
"Mom!" Elizabeth held up a hand. "Anthony recognized the name from your original birth certificates. We never told you because we didn't think it mattered. You were ours, and that was that." "You knew our birth parents' names all along?" Dominic asked incredulously.
"Of course we did. It was a closed adoption, but we had that basic information." Elizabeth looked between them, her eyes filling with tears.
"Anthony's convinced this is a sign that you're going to leave us for your birth family."
"That's ridiculous," Patricia protested.
"We would never."
"I know that," Elizabeth interrupted. "But your father, he's proud and scared. He feels like he's failed you by getting sick, by risking the house. And now this rich white man who gave you away is suddenly back in the picture."
Dominic ran a hand over his face. "Mom, we just went to see him this morning." Elizabeth's expression didn't change. "I know.
The receptionist called me when you left the hospital."
Patricia's jaw dropped. "You've been tracking us."
"I've been worried about you," Elizabeth corrected gently. "You both looked so strange when you left yesterday."
"I asked the front desk to let me know when you returned." She sighed. "So, you met him. What's he like?"
Patricia looked at Dominic, who nodded slightly.
She pulled out the folder and the check. "He gave us this. $30,000 for the mortgage and Dad's medical bills. And he's setting up trust funds for each of us. $1 million.
Elizabeth stared at the check, her eyes widening.
"That's quite a gesture." "He says he's dying," Dominic added. "For real this time. Terminal cancer. 6 months at most. He wants to leave us his entire estate. $40 million. Elizabeth sank into a nearby chair. "I see."
"Mom, we haven't decided anything," Patricia said quickly, kneeling beside her.
"We don't care about his money." "Don't you?" Elizabeth asked softly. "It's okay if you do."
"It would be perfectly natural. The only reason we went to see him was to ask for help with the mortgage," Dominic insisted.
"For you and Dad?"
Elizabeth studied both their faces.
"So, what did he tell you about why he gave you up?"
Patricia hesitated, then shared Justin's explanation about his father's threat to disown him, their plan to reclaim the twins later, and how they had been told it was too late. Elizabeth listened without interruption, her face growing increasingly troubled. When Patricia finished, she stood up abruptly.
"I need to talk to your father alone." "Wait here." She disappeared into Anthony's room, leaving the twins confused and concerned in the hallway. What was that about? Patricia whispered. Dominic shook his head.
I don't know, but she knows something she's not telling us. They waited anxiously for nearly 20 minutes before Elizabeth emerged, her eyes red from crying.
Your father wants to speak with you both.
Anthony was sitting up in bed when they entered, looking more alert than he had the previous day. The hospital room was dim, just a small lamp casting shadows across his face. He held out his hands, and both twins moved to his bedside, taking one each. I owe you both an apology, Anthony began, his voice stronger than they expected.
And the truth.
The whole truth. Patricia and Dominic exchanged concerned glances.
Dad, you don't need to. I do, Anthony insisted. You met Justin Freeland today.
You heard his version of events.
Now you need to hear mine.
The twins fell silent, confusion written across their faces. 30 years ago, Anthony continued, I was working security at Mercy Hospital. I was assigned to the maternity ward. That's where I first saw you both. He squeezed their hands, his eyes growing misty with the memory. You were the most beautiful babies I'd ever seen, perfect in every way. But your birth parents, they were arguing loudly. The man was furious, saying horrible things. The woman was crying, begging him to reconsider.
Anthony's gaze grew distant.
I wasn't supposed to interfere, but I couldn't help overhearing. He was disgusted that his white bloodline had produced black children. Called it a corruption of his family heritage. Said he'd rather have no children than raise black ones.
Patricia gasped softly. Dominic's hand tightened around Anthony's.
The woman, Dorothy, she wanted to keep you, but he threatened her. Said he'd leave her with nothing if she tried. I reported what I heard to hospital administration and child services.
Anthony paused, swallowing hard. They fast-tracked you into the foster system for your own protection. You were the one who reported them?
Patricia whispered.
Anthony nodded.
I couldn't stand by and let you go home with that man knowing how he felt about you.
It wasn't right.
But Justin said they tried to get us back, Dominic said, confused. Anthony's expression hardened.
They came back 6 months later.
Yes. By then, Elizabeth and I had been fostering you for 4 months. We'd already filed for adoption. He looked up at Elizabeth, who had moved to stand behind the twins, her hand on Anthony's shoulder. I was called into a meeting with social services when the Freelands petitioned for custody. I told them everything I'd heard that day in the hospital. Made sure they understood what kind of man Justin Freeland was.
The petition was denied.
A heavy silence filled the room as the twins processed this information.
You interfered with their petition?
Patricia finally asked, her voice small. I protected you, Anthony corrected firmly.
That man rejected you the moment you were born because of your skin color.
I wasn't going to let him change his mind when it was convenient for him.
What about Dorothy? Dominic asked. She wanted to keep us from the beginning. Anthony's expression softened slightly.
She seemed sincere, but she stayed with him, didn't she? Chose him over standing up for her own children. I couldn't risk your well-being on her spine suddenly stiffening 6 months later. The twins sat in stunned silence, trying to reconcile these two conflicting narratives of their birth and abandonment.
Dad, why didn't you ever tell us this before? Patricia finally asked. What good would it have done? Anthony replied.
We wanted you to feel chosen, loved, not rejected, and then reclaimed like some kind of afterthought.
You deserved better than that.
Dominic stood up suddenly, pacing the small room.
So Justin Freeland wasn't lying. They did try to get us back after the damage was already done.
Anthony said firmly, after he'd already shown his true colors. But you made sure we never went back to them, Patricia said, her voice holding a note of accusation.
Anthony didn't flinch.
I made sure you went to a home where you would be loved unconditionally, where the color of your skin would be celebrated, not tolerated. And I have never, not for 1 second, regretted that decision. Elizabeth moved to stand beside her husband.
We fought for you. Gave everything we had to raise you right.
That man may be your biological father, but Anthony is your dad, the one who taught you to ride bikes and helped with homework and worked double shifts to pay for your prom outfits. Patricia felt tears sliding down her cheeks. The certainty she'd felt walking into Justin Freeland's mansion that morning had evaporated, replaced by swirling confusion.
What are you going to do about the money?
Anthony asked directly, nodding toward Patricia's purse, where the check and folder sat.
We don't know, Dominic answered honestly. We haven't decided anything. Anthony nodded slowly. I won't tell you what to do. You're adults. But I want you to understand something.
He leaned forward, his eyes intense.
Whatever choices you make, you will always be our children. Nothing can change that. Not money, not blood, not DNA. Love made us a family, not biology. As the twins left the hospital that evening, the weight of the day's revelations pressed down on them.
Their simple mission to save their parents' home had unearthed secrets neither had ever imagined.
And now they faced an impossible choice.
Reject Justin Freeland's offer and lose the chance to secure their adoptive parents' future, or accept his money and risk appearing to legitimize the man their adoptive father had fought so hard to protect them from. What they didn't realize was that they weren't the only ones facing difficult decisions. In his lakeside mansion, Justin Freeland was making a phone call that would change everything. A call to the real estate company that held the Hendersons' mortgage. 3 days after their visit to Justin Freeland's mansion, Patricia and Dominic sat at Patricia's kitchen table, the check for $30,000 still uncashed.
The folder of documents spread out between them.
They had spent every spare moment going through the contents.
Medical records confirming the DNA tests,